watching this stuff a long, long time. And to be asked by Russ to come and speak, great honor for me. I really appreciate it. So we'll get right into this. So, long time reptile keeper and worked with monitor lizards on and off over 30 years, and bred a lot of species. And the last few years, you know, I've produced a lot of Mertens monitors, coming eye monitors, sulfur monitors, a lot of these aquatic type monitors. And in having so many hatchlings, you know, I had to come up with a design to keep everything, because not everything unfortunately sells as fast as you'd like. So, you know, you gotta keep them and maintain them. And so I decided that I was going to keep my Mertens in an aquatic bottom enclosure with a drain, very simple setup, and that was all for ease of maintenance. When you got so many of them, you know, ease of maintenance is a big deal. So in doing so, so basically the top here, these are my socialization enclosures, very simple design, and I created that with maintenance in mind. And so everybody, when they start with monitors, they want that, and that's great. That's no problem, that's great, but that's what this cage leads to. So if you were to take one of my captive born monitors and throw it in a cage like that, socializing that animal is going to be very, very hard. As you can see, there's a lot of hiding in there, a lot of things for them to get into, and basically a baby monitor knows he's food, so they tend to hide a lot. So if you eliminate all that and keep it in a bare setup like that, what you're trying to do is you got to meet their security needs, number one, and of course their basic husbandry. So with that being done there, it's a very simple enclosure design. I drill a hole in the bottom of any kind of small front opening type enclosure, and the drain is so when you're maintaining the enclosure, you don't have to go in there and rifle everything around. You could just open the drain, rinse everything out, close the drain, fill it back up, and you barely bother your monitors at all. So now you're basically teaching them that you're not a bad guy. So when people put them in cages like this, and they call me and they say, I haven't seen my monitor in 3 days, I'm like, okay, so what did you do? Well, I took out the log, I took out the cork bark, I took out this, I took out that. I said, no, what happened? Couldn't find my lizard. I said, you check under the water dish. 90% of the time, you check under the water dish, and that's where your baby monitor is going to be hiding. And basically what you've taught your baby monitor is that no matter where he goes in his habitat, the giant food monkey can get to him, and you know, and they're scared of him. So it's kind of counterproductive to start like that. But once you use my caging system, then you can put them in an enclosure like that, and they will just come right to you and walk right up on you, because you've broken their fear, and you build a trusting relationship with them, which is what this is all about. So over the years, with my small front opening Exoterra type enclosure, like I said, I produce a lot of monitors, and I needed something bigger and bigger. So it's actually grown to this now. This is my my rack of 3 socialization caging systems for all my hatchling monitors. So as you can see, it's a very simple setup, all water on the bottom, which, you know, all of these forest type, riverine, aquatic, I throw up the word aquatic, but these aquatic monitors, their number one source of security is the water. So of course, numbers, so I keep them all together. They get security in numbers. And when in the wild, whatever comes after them, if they're basking on a branch or something, first thing they do is they jump down and they go in the water. They scurry under some vegetation or whatever. So, like I said, the initial start of it was for ease of maintenance. And then I had some in a normal enclosure, not quite fancy like that other enclosure, but substrate on the bottom, some cork hides, plants. And after a while, I noticed the the monitors that were being raised in my socialization cage, in a matter of weeks, were real comfortable with me, would eat out of my hand, would come to me, wouldn't flee from me, where the other ones were doing the typical baby monitor thing, hiding under water dishes, you know, up behind plants. So I was like, wow, I'm onto something here for socializing them. So what turned out to be ease of maintenance actually turned out to be a great socialization tool for captive-born animals. And I really want to get this out to people because I have a lot of people that call me and say, oh, it works so great, and I'm just happy that people are doing that for their monitors. And I'm sure it could work for other species as well. Okay, so the basic setup of the socialization system is very simple setup. So you got about an inch of water on the bottom, one cork bark that stretches across, a couple plants for them to get up out of the water and onto the thing. The plant is more like a ladder. And it looks nice, so I'm all about that too. I really like naturalistic enclosures and whatnot. So with a setup like this, I use one basking light, which is a 50-watt halogen bulb over one end of the log. And the placement of these holes that you drill in there. So basically you're taking a cork bark and you're making it look like Swiss cheese. The monitors feel very secure in there, yet you can see them, you can monitor them, you don't have to look for them, you don't have to tear their cage apart. You feed them through these ports, and then click one more. So when you get to this part of the socialization, see, you, through the cork holes or whatever, you just take your tongs and you slowly give them some food. You give them some food. Now they're starting to associate you with good things, with food. So in doing so, they're getting more and more used to you. Sorry, I lost track here because, but we're good here. So once you start socializing your animals, man, I can't stress this enough. With all this psychology and you know, dog behaviors and Cesar Millan and all this stuff, you know, it really started to get me thinking, you know, and it's happened to me. I have 8 kids and a wife, so I'm not always in a good mood. Sometimes when I go down and I deal with my monitors and I'm feeling the stress of the day and, you know, I'm a little aggressive, you know, I can tell my monitors are, you know, they look at me and they're like, wait a minute, man, the same energy ain't going on here. So what I realized is before you start your socialization training with these animals, for sure, they're super intelligent animals, that you gotta clear your mind, do one of them whatever you gotta do, clear your energy, and then come down with a positive mental attitude and, you know, not aggression, just curiosity, and that's what you give them is what they're gonna give you. And all these baby monitors are really curious, and as long as they don't feel threatened, you gotta feed that curiosity, and by doing so, you start to socialize them. So, like I said, always be calm and confident when you go down. It's so important. No outside, especially early on. After a while, you'll see how this turns out. But in the beginning, no screaming kids, no barking dogs, no loud music, no radio, and I mean, even as much as like a sneeze, something you can't really help. When you sneeze, boy, that lizard's he's in shock. He's gonna step back and think what's going on here. So that calm disposition and no outside distractions. I had one person say, I don't know what's going on, Mike. And I'm like, oh, well, send me a video of what's going on. She's trying to get one of my baby coming on it and come on her arm, and they got Great Danes. And I could just, woof, woof. I'm like, hey, you might want to close the door or put the dog in the yard for a while. That's the issue. As soon as she did that, that animal turned around. The next couple of sessions, she's like, I can't believe it. I'm like, oh, so read the paper, you know? So then, yes, you win their hearts over by offering food on the hemostats. So first, they're in this Swiss cheese cork tube. Just pass them whatever, cricket, chopped pinky, whatever you're doing. And they'll eat it, they're in the tube, they feel very happy, let them munch it down. No problem. That's it. One session like that, back out, throw some crickets in there, let them hunt their own crickets. You don't want to overwhelm them. People think, oh, if I do it more, if you do it more, you're going to go backwards. So just give them a little bit of you and let them do their own thing. No, not that. So like I said, short visits with them, working with them, and then it increases as your animal gets more and more comfortable. And I would hope that you can realize, that you're moving ahead. So, and then again, always end with a positive interaction. So if the dog comes running in a room or the cat comes running in a room, don't just close the cage and that's it. Get the cat or dog out of there, whatever you got to do. Even if it's one more cricket, just one more cricket, no problem. End on a positive note. Here you can see my son Angelino working with some of these hatchlings that I produce, and he's working with the forceps and with his hand in there. Basically, it's very important to understand that in cages like this, they only see out that front window. So you work with them in their enclosure, in their environment, and they're very, very calm. So when you start approaching on what's going to happen here next is, so once you get them to come on your hand regularly and feed, before you know it, you can throw the tongs away, basically finger feed them. But now, here comes another challenge. When you take them and you pull them out past that front opening, that is the edge of their world. So as soon as you pull them out of there, if you got one of them cat clocks with the eyeballs going like this on the wall, they come out and they see that and they freak out. So everything beyond the front of that enclosure is going to become new threats or stimuli for them. So this is a slow process. What usually takes many months, I've got this down to where I have animals in a couple of weeks that are coming out of the cage and in the room without any worries with other people. I've had friends come over and we passed my big man Sulfur around like a football, and he loves all the attention. So that's what this is all about, because these animals, as they get bigger, you don't want them flighty and scared. You want them calm, bold, and confident, because as you see going down here, when they get big, they can really mess you up. If they wanted to, they could really mess you up. So here's again another example of just socializing with inside their enclosure. Here's my son with the cricket, the animal hanging upside down from the inside of the enclosure, offering him a cricket, and that thing is so comfortable upside down, it comes and eats the cricket right from his fingertips, which is, that's great progress right there. Okay, so like I was saying, you want to lure them out with food. That's the reward. So once you get them out onto your hand and keep them within your enclosure, and they'll get more and more comfortable. Once they do that, then you can sit back in your chair. Now you're outside of their enclosure, and they're looking around. And again, this is a new thing for them, because they, like I said, they hear the clock, they see this, they see a bird out the window, whatever the case may be. So it's another phase that you got to work into them to make them bold and confident. And then after time, you can just literally forget about the food reinforcement. So you open up the cage, you put your hand in there, and they'll just run up on you because they want to see what you're up to, what you're doing, what they can do. So we move on from there. Here's more of the simple socialization that we do. And again, you can see how bare minimum the cage is now. However, again, all their husbandry needs are met, and all their security needs are met with that water on the bottom. I tell you, they're really intelligent creatures to an extent. They're intelligent, but they could probably use some work. But because the Swiss cheese log right there, again, they feel totally comfortable in there. Probably, I would imagine, because you'd have to remove it and dig in there for them, and they figure they have a little chance to bolt away into the water. So again, with this Swiss cheese cork bark like that, it gives them all the security they need, and before you know it, as you can see here, there's no more food involved in this socialization. These sulfurs are just, they love my son Angelino, and they come to him, and then we work in my daughter Sarah, my wife Karen, my buddy Brian, whoever the case may be, and they get more and more used to other faces, and that is a very important thing you got to remember too. I tell people when they buy them from me, I'm like, here's the track you got to stay on, but you're going to go back a little bit because they see this mug, and they're used to this mug. And they might see another guy without a beard or with a big hairdo or whatever the case may be. They just got to get reused to another person, which that's on the person who takes one of these animals home. So keep their psychological needs in mind when you're dealing with these animals. And again, literally, right out of the eggs, me and my kids, as soon as they pip, we open them up, we let them sniff our smells, we let them take a look at us, we start desensitizing them by petting them on their jaws, and it's really, really amazing how this animal, right out of the egg like that, should be scared to death. But if you, like I said, calm, good attitude, no outside distractions, it's always usually just me and my son down here when we're hatching these eggs out. And again, yeah, they're sitting comfortably in that egg. I've seen people do this and they flee because there's a radio going in the background. You know, there's, like I said, the clock with the cat eyes or whatever the case may be. It doesn't have to be that clock. I'm not a cat guy. So, yeah, it's a work in progress and it starts right out of the egg. So with doing these animals, breeding these animals, and it started to work so good with my forest and riverine type animals, my aquatic animals. I was also breeding audacity at the time, and I'm like, wow, I mean, I'm a gorilla. I got, lizards this big right out of the egg, and I'm not very dexterous. I'm more like a cannonball, So I was like, man, I gotta think of some way that I can work with these small animals and make them, socialize them with and make them become comfortable and confident animals. So I came up with this design, which is a very small Exoterra. As you can see, there's one piece of bark that goes from the top to the bottom. So in the other enclosure, you're getting a linear thermal gradient. In this one, you're getting a vertical thermal gradient. So above this part of that cork bark, there's where your heat lamp is. That spindly little plant that drapes over the bark is their Swiss cheese cork bark. So while they feel they're hiding from you, they're underneath that spindly little plant, they're still thermal regulating from the basking, and yeah, they feel totally secure behind that plant, even though you can see them right there. So for these little guys, what I do is I chop up whatever it may be, crickets, not chopped crickets, but pinky parts, which is real. You grow these odactylus fast on protein, pinky parts, chopped quail, stuff like that. So with the tweezers, I stand in front of that cage and I just I give them one little piece, they run off. Give them another little piece, same idea. You just want to keep offering that food to them. And this is a scary thing, especially for a guy like me who's not nimble anymore. So when my kids are there and I do this, I'm not worried because they can chase these little guys down. When I'm there alone and I'm doing this, I panic because they come to a point where as soon as you come in and you grab that lock on the cage, boom, they're all right there in the front, and they're tiny. So if they decide I want a little more of you, and they jump out, I can't get them. They're fast, I'm slow, and so that's another socialization caging system that I've developed for more of an arid species, smaller odactylus. So, wow, this is like, I don't know, this is my coup de grace, really. So, this is a socialization caging system that I developed, unknowing if it was going to work or not, and it works like a charm. It's a beautiful setup. So I had gotten these Varanus togienus from a friend of mine, and we did a trade for some animals, and I'm like, hey, you know, Steve, just out of curiosity, why don't you want these things? They're awesome, awesome animals. He goes, I can't stand it. If I put my hand on the doorknob leading into my room, I just hear them going boom, 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 bouncing off the walls of the enclosure. And when he told me that, it was a couple of weeks before he was coming to in October, Tinley, and I was like, okay, I got 2 weeks. I got to get this thing together. So me and my sons got out the screwdrivers and the saws, everything we needed to do, and I came up with this system for the wild-caught togienus, which, if you know anything about wild-caught animals, or togienus in particular, they are super, super aggressive. They don't have fear. They have fear because they're nervous, but they are not afraid. If you pin them in a corner, they're like a rat. They're coming out, and they're coming out, teeth are blazing, hooks, claws, they're ready for you. Little raptors that are they're fearless. They're very fearless. When you corner them, they don't care. They want to tear you up. So, again, my friends were bouncing off the walls, and I said, okay, I got a couple weeks. I got to make this enclosure and see how it works. Just see how it works. So I made this enclosure, and as you can see, the 3 tubs on the bottom, they're all water, and you can see the drain system that's right here. Very easy. You don't have to get in there and bother these wild-caught animals, which is counterproductive to not only socializing them, but for them to live a comfortable life. Can you imagine how it would be living in fear every day of your life that somebody's going to open this door? So I didn't want that. I want my animals comfortable, and that's what it's about for me. So, no, not yet. So, as you can see here, I put them in here. I put them in the socialization caging system, and they were very nervous at first. I'd come into the room, they'd jump down in their water. However, the water's crystal clear, and no matter where they're at in there, I can see them, they can see me, but they feel very secure in the water. So over time, they stopped bouncing off the walls, and in a couple months' time, I was tongue feeding these animals that my friend, when he touched the doorknob to his room, they were gone. He'd never seen them. He'd just leave food in there, which I want to breed these things, so I can't have empty cage syndrome. I got to make these things comfortable to where they're out and they do things in front of me. So I wasn't sure if the caging system was going to work, and then after a couple of weeks, they started tongue feeding. No problem. So just a couple of weeks ago, trust me, that picture right there, you don't see my face, but I'm scared. I'm scared because that animal right there, he could literally shred you up like a shark. Razor teeth, their dentition is unbelievable. Very nasty. I had, when I first got him, I had a pair of leather gloves on, and one wiggled its head free and got the edge of the glove, leather glove, sliced. I'm like, okay, I'll have to respect this a little bit. So when I was doing that, that's the first time I ever dealt with him with no gloves on, no sleeves on, and I don't really like doing that anyway. So this animal was probably in my care for, when he did that, it was probably 3 months. So from an animal that bounced off the walls and hid and everything, to 3 months later, I got him doing this, and I sent the video to my friend Steve, and he's like, "You SOB?" I'm like, "Nah, you know what? You should have tried this or something." I felt bad for him, but I love these guys. I love these animals, and I might have a different approach if this socialization cage didn't work. So over the next couple of months, I go and check on. This is in a separate room from my monitor room. So I go in and check on them, and all these cages, the center pieces, there's pass-throughs. So the male is in the middle, and I got a female flanking him. So, and of course, I didn't know if that was going to, I didn't know if that was going to work as far as breeding or anything, but I was prepared for it. I've been doing this a while, so I was prepared for it in high hopes that I could breed these things. So I have 2.3 of them, and it wasn't easy getting them down to where these two are compatible and these two are compatible. certain ones want to kill each other. So after much ado, I got these into a couple of different groups. And this particular group here, I had let the male and that female, I had opened the thing, so the gate. So they went in together, they got along really fine. So one day, I go in there, and I'm looking for them, and they're black, and the tubs are black, so they have a little, you know, it works to their advantage a little bit. I'm looking in there, and I see, you know, their tails. I'm like, wow, they're locked up. I'm like, I was so happy. The species never been bred before in captivity, so I'm hoping I can see this through. I have 2 gravid females now. Again, that's 1 hurdle. I got nesting ahead of me and then incubation, so I'm very hopeful for them. But a great species, and just to show you that this socialization system really can work on stubborn, wild-caught animals that most of the time, people who get them, you get the empty cage syndrome, where you got this beautiful cage, but you never see your animal. You leave food there, you can't monitor their health, which is what the whole idea behind the caging system is, so you can monitor them and they feel comfortable. So, moving on. Again, here you can see my son Angelino, he works with these little hatchlings, and they love him, he loves them, and he's really, really good at it. And then, in the end, the reason behind all of this is for when people buy animals from me, I don't just want them to, I really want the people to succeed, and I really want my animals to have happy, long, happy lives. So as you can see, this is a big female, Varanus bibitatus, a Javan sulfur, and that animal right there could literally mess you up. And not only mess you up, but if you'll notice, I don't have any gloves on, I don't have any long sleeve shirts on, and the reason being is when they're comfortable with you and they trust you and you trust them, there's no nervousness, there's no clinging. Like if you've ever had an animal who you're handling and you could just feel them, they get on your arm and they just go, oh, and with monitors, that, trust me, that'll shred you up. So once they're nice and calm and they're trusting of you and you're trusting of them, you don't need the long shirts, you don't need the leather gloves. And don't you think that's how all animals should live their lives, instead of, you know, in fear and nervousness? That's what the end result is, and that's why I created this. Again, it didn't start off that way, but I thank the Lord that it works, and I was given the opportunity to come here and talk about this with my friend Russ over there, and I just hope other people continue to use this method, and for the sake of your animals and yourself. And here's just a few reviews that, like, a good friend of mine, Nick Lillis, he's a breeder as well. He's like, hey, Uncle, how do you get your animals so calm and tame? And I told him what to do. There's a little review of, you know, how he feels about it. Another customer who, again, when they buy these animals, and I'm really kind of like a pain in the butt about it, I'm like, hey, you know, here, I don't have a problem selling you, but here's the way I suggest that you set them up if you want long distance, you know, a trusting relationship with your animal. And 90% of them do, and the 10% that don't, they call me back and they're like, oh, this thing ain't what you said. I'm like, well, you know, show me how you set the cage up. And they send me a picture of, like, that first cage we looked at, which is a beautiful naturalistic enclosure. And that's the end result. So if you want that beautiful naturalistic enclosure, you better have an animal that's not afraid of you, because you give them a room, you give them a space like that where they can hide and do their own thing, they don't really want to deal with you. You got to break the barrier. And once you break the barrier, they enjoy dealing with us. So these are just a couple of reviews and photos of, you know, basically how I tell people to set it up. And, you know, again, it's on my website, Mike'sMonitors.com. Socialization caging system. Anybody who's interested, and, you know, I wouldn't be shocked or hurt if anybody tried it with some other type of animal or some other species. I know a couple of my friends over there, they tried it with some snakes and they say it's working out really well. So yeah, and just advancing this stuff for the well-being of our animals, that's what I'm all about. So that's it.